Hello, everyone. I am Gandair of the gaming clan, Vato Clan, and welcome to the Dominion Breakdown. This Dominion Breakdown episode is going to be dedicated to Fizz. Fizz, who is a mobile AP assassin, and some people have a lot of trouble with him. His damage is great. His ability to avoid being killed is also a force to be reckoned with, and I've brought a couple people with me today to talk about that character. Dominion Breakdown is a show where we talk all about a subject in regards to its effect on Dominion gameplay, any other gameplay on the Crystal Scar. I'm Gandair, your host of the gaming clan, Vato Clan, and commentating and talking about Fizz with me is going to be, you guys argue over who goes first and introduce yourselves.
I'll go first. This is RCIX. I was on Team Out of Nowhere. They participated in a couple of Dominion tournaments, but then kind of fell apart. Right now I'm just a high ELO Fizz player who spent a lot of time playing him and learning him and mastering.
I am CarnivaL from CarnivaL and Child Support, a recent addition to the team to replace Buddha Rice, and yeah, I played a little Fizz.
Alright, and then I am wolferer. I'm on Clueless. I play Fizz in the Dominate Dominion tournament fairly often, including last week.
Alright. Now, the new cool thing that was going on this week, a little bit of current events before we get started on talking about Fizz, is, have you guys seen the cinematic that was released? Yep. Had Twisted Fate, Fiddlesticks, a Cat Garen fight that I thought was just awful, and some awesome stuff with Tryndamere. Did you guys check that out? What did you think?
Yeah, but the Nocturne.
What about Nocturne?
Nocturne.
Money.
He just didn't use his spell shield at all, and he got beat up. If he just used his spell shield, he would have lived.
Did it ever occur to you that maybe it was like a level 3 gank? And, well, no, it couldn't have been because he used Paranoia. Maybe he just misclicked at level 5 when he would have taken it and didn't get it.
It's possible.
I think that if he had had Spell Shield, though, then he would have been able to eat that Rune Prison, and then everything would have been okay for Nock there. He didn't even get close enough to pop the fear on him, and I think that Spell Shield would have really helped him out in that engagement.
Yeah, I think the main thing I'm disappointed with is they're not picking more current champions, because, to be honest, every champion they've shown in a cinematic is somewhat bland, and even, like, if they had picked Fizz, for example, if they had picked Zed, they'd pick Vi, and just go down this long list of champions, and I think that would add a lot more spice, just because the kits translate into a lot more interesting fights.
Yeah, I think all the champions in there were from Season 1 or earlier.
Yeah, but the champions they included were some of their more iconic champions. Like Annie is one of the most iconic champions in League of Legends. And then Katarina and Ryze, they're on like the loading screen. So
yeah, I get that.
There's a reason they picked them.
Yeah, it would have been nice just to see something from the new wave.
I also think it's because probably they had a lot of older art assets lying around. I mean, I think they have more concept art and just work in general put on the older characters because they've been around for so long that they might not have that sort of backlog of art and ideas and things for the newer characters. One of the things that I really liked about the cinematic was that sort of like vision of hell that Ryze was having with like the pillar that had was made out of stuff that was crawling around and things, and then it cut back over to it looking normal. That was a really cool visual effect.
Oh yeah, that was really neat.
Yeah, I really liked the Nocturne Darkness concept they came up with. The whole wall of like shadow cloud thing going on, that was really nice.
Ryze pulling the spell out of the book felt a little awkward, though, to me. Anyone else get that vibe, or am I just seeing things?
Took him a little long, I think.
Yeah, overall, I think it was pretty good.
Oh yeah, fantastic.
I didn't like the Fiddle Twisted Fate fight. It might be because I'm more of a Fiddle player, but it just
it wasn't even a fight. It was just like, hey, the crows and cards are gonna hit each other in midair, and there's not actually gonna be anything. It was a pretty big tease.
The point of the video wasn't really to show champions fighting like they would in game. It's just to show something cool.
Yeah,
For
but Cat
pretty
and
much-
Garen had a pretty nice slugfest.
Yeah. Well, like I have one friend who doesn't play the game at all, and he watched the video and he thought it looked really cool. So that's sort of the type of audience they're going for with this.
They hit
Yeah,
that on the
it's
head. It
definitely
looked awesome.
players.
Yeah.
Who here would pay money for an HD League remake?
HD, like, I don't know, Skyrim?
Like,
You're talking about in-game? What do you mean?
yeah, like in game, the graphics. You'll have like things like scorch marks from Tibbers Landing, just upgraded textures in general, better cape behavior on champions like Twisted Fate. The clothes having their own sort of physics and collision. Other things, just neat little tweaks and stuff like that.
So collaborate with Blizzard and...
Like Twisted Fate's cards like tumbling in midair and stuff like that.
Collaborate with Blizzard and spend a year making super polish on everything that's currently in.
I think that I would love it, but with the rate that they release champions, like how would they ever keep up with that if the graphics were higher than they are, though?
They're not feasible.
It'd be nice, but it's not necessary. It's too much fluff.
Yeah, I think they're doing a very good job at updating their older art assets. And like, if you look at older videos before the Summer's Rift was like redone to look nicer, you're like, how did I ever play with it looking like this? It looks terrible. And like that old purple shopkeeper, like they've done a lot of work to improve the graphics in the game.
Rip in peace, old shopkeeper. He was okay. Anyone got anything else they want to add in about the cinematic before we kick over to the main topic?
No, I'm good.
No, I'm fine.
Alright. Oh, come on. Little button. Do your thing. There you go. Okay. Fizz's abilities. I have the LOL wiki page for Fizz open over here in the main window. So for anyone who's watching the video and isn't familiar with the abilities, tab back over to it. I know we do a mostly audio thing, but if you want to check this out, you can see on screen. Nimble Fighter. This passive allows him to ignore unit collision, and he takes reduced physical damage from auto attacks. I'm going to read down the whole list real quick. Urchin Strike. He has dash. He dashes forward a fixed distance in the direction of the target. He deals physical damage equal to his attack damage plus additional magic damage. Physical damage applies on hit effects. Magic damage applies on ability effects. You get 60% of AP on that. Seastone Trident. His auto attacks deal magic damage over time. That's increased based off of their missing health. And multiple auto attacks just refresh the duration. It doesn't stack up like crazy. Damage caps against minions and monsters, but we're not really too worried about that in Dominion. Its activatable effect, though, his auto attacks are empowered for the next 5 seconds. They deal extra magic damage on hit and apply grievous wounds, which is a healing reduction. So he gets bonus damage when they're lower on health. It gives 35% of AP to damage, and it reduces healing. And then Playful Trickster, or Playful, as I've heard some people refer to it sometimes. He becomes untargetable, which is great for dodging things, and it will deal some magic damage. You can use it as sort of a leap as well, and do some magic damage with it. Basically, it's something that removes him from being targeted momentarily, and enables him to move around in a fight, or deliver some additional damage. And his last one, Chum the Waters, he throws out a fish or a lobster, depending upon what skin you have. Throws that out, it goes into line effect, it will attach to whoever it hits first. If it doesn't hit anyone, it just hangs out on the map for a minute, and then once the countdown ends, giant shark or Earth the Manatee comes up out of the water or ground, and it is an airborne effect. It does a bunch of damage. It gets like full AP. It's pretty crazy. It's airborne knockback. Everyone who's hit by it is slowed as well. If it attaches to a person, that person is slowed as well. So he has a little bit of crowd control. He has a nice initiate, kind of gives him a hit and run feel, and he can run through things to connect to his target. The abilities in the kit, like, what's your guys' favorite out of what he has? Like, what is your big damage dealer when you're playing as Fizz?
Well, it's clearly all about the Playful Trickster. That's his highest damaging ability other than his ultimate, and it's also the most core part of his kit.
Yeah, I agree with that. The troll pole is just the slow on it is ridiculous. The damage is great, and you can actually avoid abilities with it.
Yeah, I would say I would actually go for his Urchin Strike because Playful Trickster gets a lot of attention, but people really underestimate a 3.6 second cooldown dash that effectively has well over 1 AP ratio once you build his core of Lichbane.
Now, when you say 3.6 cooldown, we're talking 40% CDR, right?
Yeah, that's kind of given for Fizz, especially and for Dominion.
It seems like his survivability at times is really dependent on him being able to use Playful Trickster because his health is so low.
Oh yeah.
Does the CDR have that additional effect as well? I mean, CDR seems to be the stat in this game. Anyone who's a caster, whether they're an AD caster or an AP caster, they seem to really favor that stat. But on Fizz, it also gives him sort of a defense, whereas other champions just allows them to get out more damage faster, get more of their dashes, escapes, or whatever. Whereas he enables that dodge. Is there anything that can hit during Playful Trickster? Does it avoid everything?
Playful Trickster
If
doesn't
there's
block.
if there's a tether like a Fiddlesticks drain already on you, that'll keep going through. And then also something like Zed's ult, where it's something that's on you and then it procs.
So it won't break something that's hanging out? Am I hearing that correctly, or am I not quite picking it up?
Things hitting you.
Leashes won't be broken. The damage over time and delay damage procs won't be directly broken. Zillion's bombs are a specific, actually, because they're area of effects. They'll just go off on the area around Fizz, and because he's untargetable, it won't hit him.
Okay, so if it's a dot or something, it's going to temporarily ignore that damage?
No, it's not
Or does it still
invulnerability,
go?
so damages over time still apply.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. I didn't know that.
Ignite, Swainbird, Drain, LeBlanc's Tether, and Karma's Tethers will still proc, but the Snare won't actually take into effect until he's off of the pole.
How quickly can you activate the combo, like the Playful Trickster? Is there a cooldown when you jump up on it, or can you pop it again like really fast afterward?
There's
You can
about half.
pop it again instantly, pretty much.
It's less than...
There's a little animation time, but you can do it pretty quickly.
And something in regards to that, actually specifically, is a big note that a lot of newer Fizz players do is they almost always use both casts, and because Playful Trickster has such a large AoE if you don't double cast it, and it also has the slow, you really want to avoid doing that unless you need the mobility.
So if you don't need to escape, you should just kind of let it time out and have them
Yeah.
effectively like just ground pound in the fight with it?
Yep. And something that's really neat is if you click on a direction and tell Fizz to move in a direction while you're on the pole, they'll actually fall off the pole in that direction. So it's not like the full jump, but it'll get him moving in that direction. And
So you can affect the landing location.
Yeah. But because it slows so much and it's such a big AoE, unless you're absolutely sure you won't hit somebody or you need the mobility, you should definitely hold it and just let yourself fall.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. The damage range is actually almost as long if you let it just fall, whereas if you double cast it, because the AoE is bigger on the, which is playful. And then the other thing you have to consider is because you're in the air longer, you're going to be avoiding more damage in team fights. So if you watch the videos where I play, I pretty much always single cast it.
When you use that ability, when you use Playful Trickster, should you try and have if you're going to use it for the slow, when you use this in your rotation, should you walk up in Playful Trickster, or should you try to Urchin Strike in and then pop that? Or does it really matter because of the cooldowns? Can you get Urchin Strike up fast enough afterward to be able to use it again to escape out or to chase?
Depends on the situation. If it's 1v1, typically you will Urchin Strike in and hit them a little bit, then Playful Trickster. if it's a big team fight, what I usually do is I just sort of play full into the middle and then slow everybody, and then I urchin strike to dash out and wait for cooldowns.
Yeah, I kind of agree. You want to evaluate the situation and say, do I need to save Playful Trickster to dodge something? Am I going to take a lot of damage if I just urchin strike in? But if you're just going for damage and stickiness, the best combo is to play Urchin Strike in and then Playful Trickster to over the enemy to slow them.
Which one of these would you level up first?
That's easy. Unless you're going bot, the answer is always, always, always Urchin Strike.
I would disagree and say Playful Trickster. The cooldown increase, the damage, and the potential AoE and increased slow are pretty much always better than Urchin Strike.
Yeah, the cooldown decrease on Playful Trickster is just too critical. You have to max that first, in my opinion.
Where could there be a situation, like, I know RCIX, you said you like Urchin Strike up fast. Where does that seem to do better than Playful Trickster for you, suggesting that you level that one earlier?
Like, the reason I do it is because the general principle is you want your lowest cooldown spell the most effective first, especially since Fizz functions as a sort of AP sustained fighter outside of his ultimate being up and more in the early game. So getting your Playful Trickster down, not Playful Trickster, Urchin Strike down to 3.6 seconds by about level 69 means that you're really mobile, you can really stick to people, and then once you get into the later game, you really need that low cooldown Playful Trickster, but early on, you can focus on the stickiness, and well-timed Playful Tricksters will serve until then.
So you just base it off of the phase of the game being more beneficial sometimes for you to level it that way?
Yeah, I just don't see... Until you get 40% CDR, Playful Trickster's cooldown is going to be kind of long anyway, even if you max it, so if you max Urchin Strike first, it gets you that critical mobility you need to stick in the early game when your damage is lacking.
Which one has a longer range, to cover ground? Will Playful Trickster get you further, or will Urchin Strike? I know you could use Urchin Strike more often, so over time it will give you more chase, or whatever you want to refer to that as, but just in single use, which one gets you further?
It's looking like Playful Trickster pushes you 800 range versus Urchin Strike's 550.
Okay, so single-use Playful Trickster will kick you further, but Urchin Strike, you could use maybe one more time in a fight, let's say.
Yep.
I feel like you get 2 Playful Tricksters in, you can get 3 Urchin Strikes, depending upon which one you max first.
Yeah, that's about it. And early game, mid-game, you get these breaking points where an extra cast of Urchin Strike is a lot more damage than a few levels in Playful Trickster.
Now, wolferer and CarnivaL, you guys favor Playful Trickster being leveled up first. Where do you find that to have an advantage?
I think that it's a very good damage ability. If you look at the damage scaling on it, you get 50 damage per level, whereas on Urchin Strike you get only 30 per level. So even if you get like 2 casts of Urchin Strike versus 1 cast of Playful Trickster, you're still pretty even on damage. And then the other thing is that it's your escape and you could use it for damage. So you can sort of go in with Playful Trickster, and then in a few seconds you can also use it to escape if you need to. Whereas if you leave it at level 1, it's got that 16-second cooldown, and you pretty much only get to use it once. Urchin Strike, it's harder to use an escape because you need something to target, whereas Playful Trickster, you can go any direction.
Well, Urchin Strike is a target, isn't it? I'm sorry, I didn't notice that. So you have to dash out through someone to use it.
Like, the other thing I find is I dislike maxing Playful Trickster because it's really early game. It does serve as your escape spell, so if you max it, you end up being more inclined to use it for your damage, and that can take it away from you, even despite the reduced cooldown when you need it to escape.
Yeah, you have to be very careful about when you use it, and if you're maxing it, you can't hold it as an escape. You have to use it for damage.
So that makes it a little bit more all-in-y. I guess,
Oh, yeah.
wouldn't it?
Yeah, you really have to all in with it.
Yeah, but you can sort of kite around the fringes and not be completely all in. You don't have to jump into the middle of their team with it.
So
But
kind of... Oh, go on.
I would advise whoever's watching this video, they want to try Fizz, definitely try both maxes and see what works better for their playstyle. But personally, on my end, I would rather max Urchin Strike because it's just so versatile and it gets you that sustained damage and it lets you use your escape spell early game for escape.
So it feels like one of those is a little bit more greedy, one's a little bit more safe, but tactical. So like general purpose versus niche purpose, rather. With the sustained repeatable damage from the Q versus having the sort of larger damage from the E, but it seems like that has a larger margin for error.
You've got to remember, though, that Urchin Strike is, especially in the early levels, going to be a majority physical damage spell. Early on, you're only getting 10, 40 magic damage, and if you're using Magic Pen runes, their armor is going to tank a lot of the damage from the ability.
Oh. It's one of those ones that you need both the pens for to work? I don't claim to know all the mechanics in the game.
Yeah, you'd need a hybrid pen for some R pen. It's something I would run, but I haven't been able to save up the IP to shell out for hybrid pen runes.
Yeah, hybrid pen runes have always seemed a little bit underwhelming on all but very, very few characters and situations, so I've always been hesitant to experiment with them myself.
I run them on anyone that has usually magic abilities, and then but is still like mainly an auto attacker.
So like a Kali Jax?
Yeah.
Like that?
Diana, too.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I do run hybrid pen reds on Fizz, and I actually also get both penetrations and masteries for Fizz, just because he does so much attacking in his combos. It's definitely worth it.
Real quick before we get on the runes, curiously absent was Seastone Trident. What do we care? Like, is this just you pick up one of these for the Grievous runes and then you max it out later? Is that the general consensus with that, or is there any situation in which you would consider powering Seastone Trident levels?
Pretty much. It's his only spell that doesn't reduce in cooldown per level. It has a very poor maxing power on base level in 15 base and then 1% missing. And it's just, you don't really need to max it because it doesn't offer anything over the other spells.
Does it proc BFT?
No.
What procs BFT on this guy?
Q, E, and R.
All
So
right.
Urchin Strike, Playful Trickster, and Chum the Waters. PFT's really underwhelming on him, honestly.
Yeah, I actually max Seastone Trident second on Fizz. Maxing it actually gives you a little bit more damage than maxing Urchin Strike does. It just gives you a little bit less mobility. The main thing about Seastone Trident is getting that 4% extra missing health damage. That's actually a lot of damage. So, you don't necessarily see it because it's a dot and it ticks away, but it makes a big difference.
I could see that.
Yeah, I would never get it over Playful because of the cooldown on it is just so good to get. But if it was against like a bruiser or a tank, if I had to sustain against someone like that, then I would get Seastone to really tack on the damage on him.
So against a heavy bruiser, heavy tank combo, we're talking like 3 or more up top?
Yeah, I would grab Seastone second then.
What about in a bottom lane matchup? Is there a reason to take it down there? I feel like down there you really need Playful Trickster to help you defend against ganks.
Well, you have to get Playful Trickster for the wave clear bottom lane. If you don't have a wave clear in your bottom lane, you're going to have a hard time.
Oh yeah, that's true. That is his only...
Yeah.
His AoE there.
I do still max Seastone Trident second when I'm bottom lane, because it's really good in duels, and also just for whittling down minions, it's pretty good.
Yeah, if you you could do like a Playful and a quick poke with Urchin, because Urchin also applies Seastone.
Ooh.
So, doing that would help, what's the word? Poke them down more.
Could you what champion do you think there would be where there'd be a situation where you'd go one Urchin for the dash and then go Playful Sea Stone? Does this have to be against someone like tanky, like Nunu or something like that? Would that work in that instance? Because you could... I mean, Playful can be used both to wave clear and to dodge the snowball that's going to come at you afterward. You dodge the snowball, drop down, clear the wave. He's got some damage ticking on from Sea Stone. Was that good play, or does something like that not work too well?
I would do it against Nunu, Jarvan, Pantheon. Yeah, I mean, if you're a bruiser, I would go Sea Stone.
Yeah, it's only for someone with a lot of mobility that you need to get the Urchin Strike levels to be able to catch up to them. If they're going to sit there and fight you, you definitely want Sea Stone Trident level second. Playful Trickster always first.
If you're not going to have to chase, Sea Stone can be good.
Yeah, because it does more damage.
But if they're a mobile character, say someone like Ezreal LeBlanc, you're going to want the Urchin Strike to try and keep up with them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
the thing I have with that is if you're maxing it second or first, whichever you pick, you are taking levels away from Urchin Strike, which is your primary. Once you hit mid-game, you're really looking to proc a lot of Lich Bane procs. So if you're maxing Playful Trickster, then Sea Stone Trident, you really don't have a way to push out a lot of them, and you're kind of left with inferior DPS indirectly as a result.
So it would really impact your burst then, wouldn't it?
It wouldn't.
No, it's sustained damage he's talking about there.
Yeah. Your burst would be okay. Sea Stone Trident does give you quite a bit of increased bursts, even though it doesn't look like it, but sustained damage would fall off because you don't have Urchin Strike up to keep proccing Lich Bane.
I follow you. I'll get to Lich Bane.
I actually don't agree with that completely, though, because, if you stagger out your Sea Stone Trident activation and your Urchin Strike activation to get a Lich Bane proc on both of them, you're pretty much going to get like 4 Lich Bane procs in a row before you miss out on any. And if you get that many, you're pretty set on the sustained damage.
To do that situation that you're talking about, which for anyone listening, that's sort of a general purpose AP or anyone that builds a Sheen type item, is staggering your abilities. Now Fizz is a fairly fragile champion. He just has the ability to negate damage and escape with Playful Trickster, or in the situation where you can Urchin Strike out through a minion or something like that to get that distance. What's the best way to keep Fizz alive so you can roll that sort of I stagger my uses? Like, do you have to just kind of skirt around the edge of the fight for that, or go through the fight even, and then circle around and come back?
So the big thing with Fizz's survivability is you really, really, really need to time your Playful Tricksters, because every Playful or Trickster should be either slowing the enemy so you can keep chasing them, or dodging something so you take less damage.
Something else to note is that you want to be very careful about how you team fight. You don't want to be, up there in the front and get everyone to focus you. You sort of want to hang around sides and dive in and pick off low health people. It's pretty similar to like Katarina's playstyle.
Alright, and looking back at Playful Trickster again, what's a couple of the big triggers that you use to identify when you want to pop that?
Big times I would pop that is when an enemy has a skill shot CC, then I'll wait to see that and use it to dodge. If the enemy has some sort of big steroid or something, I'll use it to escape and get away from them while the steroid drops. Cases like that.
Alright.
Yeah, if basically when you're doing Playful or Urchin, you want to dodge at least one spell when you cast them. If you don't, then Fizz, his mobility, his slipperiness, he'll die instantly. If you have to dodge an ability, or he's dead. like LeBlanc and Talon and the rest, if he eats too many spells, he crumbles.
And Wolfer, what do you look for when you're going for Playful Trickster?
You basically want to figure out quickly whether people are going to go after you or not. If you can sort of get them to go after your teammates instead, then you sort of just use it for damage. If there's a LeBlanc who's going to come after you, then you have to use it to avoid her Qs. It's very situational, and you sort of need to imagine how the team fight's going to play out.
And I think my last question on the subject of Playful Trickster being used to avoid things, in bottom lane, at what point do you pocket your Playful Trickster and like hold on to it in like gank anticipation? Because you need to use it for wave clear, as you've mentioned, because that's the AoE, that's where your damage is. But it also seems like that's also going to be your escape mechanic to avoid ganks. When you think about it, like when do you go for I'm going to hold on to this so that I can use it to escape?
The thing to remember in bottom lane is that there's always minions around. So you can actually Playful Trickster the creep wave and then Urchin Strike the big creep, and you'll be pretty much where you started. So it's really not that much of a risk using it in that situation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You can also, if the gank comes and say the opposing laner is, back on his side of the lane clearing minions, you can always just Urchin Strike through the ganker and then you walk home scot-free.
Alright, that sounds pretty good to me. There's two abilities we have not covered yet. The passive, how often does this come into play, guys? Is this so good?
It's more of a Summer's Rift passive. It's good in the laning phase because it reduces minion damage by quite a bit. And sometimes being able to ignore unit collision helps you with better pathing. It's nice bottom lane because you can trade a little bit better with it, but top lane it doesn't do that much.
It seems like Urchin Strike's dash seems to make this ability kind of moot in Dominion, because you have that dash to get into the fight, you don't need to worry about walking around, and you're not going to get creep locked, as you said, because of the lower minion count.
Yeah. I will say, though, it's hard to appreciate ignoring unit collision sometimes, and you don't really notice when it is helping you out.
I think the physical damage reduction is vastly underestimated because Fizz has the most problem against sustained AD bruiser type people, and that really helps him even the odds.
4, 8, 16, 10, 12, and 14. Do you know what levels those land at? It doesn't say on my page here.
If you hover your mouse over it, it'll tell you.
Oh, what? Really?
Yeah, it looks like every 3 levels.
Oh, crap! I did not know that! Dude, you're bailing me out. I love it. Thank you.
Yeah, everything with the little dots under them, you just mouse over.
Oh, man. I'm so hyped. This website is great. I love it. Okay, well, there you go. So, it scales pretty good. It looks like the awesome jump is going to be at level 10. I think it would have been better if that hit at 9 rather than 10, but whatever, you can't really do anything about that. That's pretty cool. And then, lastly, we haven't talked about the ultimate at all, although the ultimate seems like, to me, it's pretty straightforward. The ultimate, it's an AoE airborne, it does a lot of damage, it gets full AP, 2 damage, it's great. It is a skill shot. If it gets intercepted, it doesn't land where you wanted it to. You have to... Is there a trick to this? Is there something we're not seeing, or is it as straightforward as it seems on paper? You throw the thing, it zones an area, it airbornes people, it hits real hard?
Don't miss it. That's the trick.
Don't miss it.
It's usually better to use your other abilities than getting close. Make sure you definitely hit it, than to try and hit it from long range to like initiate or something.
Okay.
Yeah, this is his ultimate is basically the big reason he's relevant in team fights, since it serves as such wide AoE damage in CC. It's also a really good 1v1 ability, since people seem to kind of freeze up when it hits them, and they just stop doing anything and try and run away.
Well, if you knew a manatee was going to jump out of the ground, be really freaked out that it wasn't in water and beat you up, I think you'd kind of be like, for a second too. When you get to the point where you're really used to sharks coming out of the ground and taking a bite out of you, you might have to rethink your life decisions.
Yeah.
That's just my thought. It's interesting that you mentioned 1v1 because that's one of the things I was actually really curious about with this ability. When do you use this in a 1v1? Is this your opener? Do you pocket this for an interrupt? Do you use it to chase a fleeing opponent? Where, when, and how in a 1v1? Because in team fights it seems to be pretty straightforward. You use it to CC a bunch of people, maybe snipe out a squishy if you can tag him with it. But in 1v1, where's the timing? When do you want to deliver this?
I think you pretty much just use it for damage if you need it. Something important to notice is that you don't want to be using your playful at the same time the chum the water knockup happens, because then they couldn't damage you anyways at that point. So if it's someone really dangerous, you can hit them with the fish, and then you playful on top of them, and then you land as they get knocked up. So you get 3 seconds of damaging them where they can't damage you at all.
That sounds like a pretty good combo. I like that.
Yeah.
There are a couple of basic uses that I tend to find. The first one is if you're going for just a 100 to 0 burst, is you want to approach from Fog of War, throw it out as your opener, and then use your Troll Pole to close while throwing DFG on them, and then Urchin Strike to finish them off. Otherwise, if you're going for just the straight up brawl, you want to use it whenever you're opportune and you decide, I'm going to need an interrupt now, and you need more damage to help finish them off. You don't want to use it as your opener unless you're very confident you can get killed quickly.
So it definitely also serves a purpose as a time buy, sort of like an artificial extension of Playful Trickster where you get an increased period of not taking damage.
Yeah.
Because it seems like it would go good, just following or just before that.
Yeah, you don't want to use them at the same time, because then you waste them. You waste that avoidance of damage.
Now, CarnivaL, where you've played Fizz recently in a couple of tournaments. Is there a certain way you want to deliver this in a team fight environment at all, or is it because I kind of glossed over a little bit, because I wanted to focus on the 1v1, but is there a particular situation you look for when to throw this into a team fight?
If someone's out of position and we want to initiate, then we can use the fish. We throw it that way. Other times you want to burst someone. I mean, it varies. If they have a bruiser, if they have something that initiates on us, then the fish. This is post 11, by the way. The fish is used as more of a utility spell to keep someone slow, to keep them busy, to let our APs and assassins go around and do their thing.
So it enables a setup if you throw it on a bruiser like Pantheon Jarvan, someone like that?
Yeah. And it allows, our brand or Zyra, whatever, to walk away from them or kite them as they please.
What? I want to close out abilities and get on to builds here in a second. Looking at what he has here, his kit, what other champion abilities synchronize well with what Fizz has? Is there something else that particularly makes Chum of the Waters awesome? Playful Trickster combined with which other champion? Seastone Trident plus other champ is completely imba. What synchronizes well with these abilities from other champions' kits?
High burst. Anyone with high burst goes well with Seastone because they get them low enough for the dot to just murder what's left of them. And any stun like Leona loves Fizz. She can proc all her sunlights. She can set up the fish really well, and that'll just maul a team if they hit both their ultimates.
Oh wow! So yeah, that can be airborne into Solar Flare or vice versa. And if someone doesn't quite burst someone down, Fizz's dot can run him the rest of the way?
Pretty much.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. He's sort of a loner, and you don't really see any nasty combinations like you might see a Jarvan Leona bot lane in some of the Rift. but he does pair well with CC to lock people down and other bursts to help finish people off.
Alright, anyone else have anything they want to say on abilities before we move on to what the hell do we put on this guy?
Nope.
Cool, all I need was one person. Bam! Builds. The first question I have to ask is, what the Christ is with the Fizz build? And when I say the Fizz build, some people out there are like, yeah, I know that. Fizz, all he seems to do is, at least, when I first was experienced with it, it was Sorc Shoes, Rabadon's, Lichbane, and he ran the game. That's it. He, didn't need anything else. The second he had those 3 items, he ran the show. In Dominion, it's Boots, Wooglitz, Lichbane. He runs the show. Why does he run the show off of so little items?
He does so much damage. It's ridiculous.
I don't understand. He just builds that, and I'm pretty convinced he just doesn't need to build anything for the rest of the game. Because the game's gonna end immediately. That's his Death Star. Oh, freaking Caitlyn has finished her second Bloodthirster and has her IE. Oh my god, we're screwed. Fizz is oh, he's 2 items in. Crap. Why? Why, guys? Tell me why this works. I'm so sad.
One thing is that Fizz doesn't really have to build defensive-oriented items because he has so much defensive in his kit with his Playful Trickster. So, a lot of champions, they have to get, the Zhonya's Hourglass to be able to survive, but Fizz can just, get straight for that Lichbane and deliver those Lichbane procs with ease.
It also gives him movement speed, too, which is kind of brutal on a character who is good at chase and likes to gank.
Yeah, I would say it's because if you look at his numbers, once you have Urgent Strike max, you're looking at 1.7 AP ratio hits on a 3.6 second cooldown in combination with Seath Stone Trident and Lichbane. That's nasty.
So that's sort of a very general thing. I think a lot of people are aware of that. Now, what else do you build on this champion? Let's just go, down each one of you guys. We'll start with Wolferer, because your name for some reason is in the middle of my screen and I can't get rid of it because the Skype call overlay bugged out. I hope it's not showing up in the video, but you're stuck there because I tabbed out weird, and your icon's in the middle of my screen. I can't get rid of it. But what do you build Wolferer on this character, and is there a significant difference between what you build top lane and bottom lane's mostly counter build item, right?
Sometimes you sometimes build a resist item bottom lane to counter them. But in general, the stats that I like on Fizz are movement speed, magic pen, cooldown reduction, and ability power. So usually I'll start off getting the Sorcerer Shoes, and then I'll get the Kindle Gem and the Amp or the Codex, Fiendish Codex, for that quick 20% cooldown reduction. And then after that, I'll build up the Lichbane for the damage and the Hextech Sweeper for the mobility. So once you have those items, that's pretty much the core on Fizz. After that, you fill it in with a Void Staff if they're buying MR, or you get your cooldown reduction up a little bit more by upgrading your Fiendish Codex.
The Sweeper being a popular item like it is, why is it where it is in your build?
It's even better on Fizz than it is on most champions, because he's so good at using that 10% movement speed just to, get close enough to his target that he can Urchin Strike to them, or he's fast enough he can run away in combination with his Playful Trickster. And then, you get a little bit of health to help you survive, and you get a pretty good amount of ability power and that cooldown reduction, which is so important.
Are there any situational items that you tend to favor that you look for a certain team comp and say, hey, I can build this, or a certain bottom lane matchup and say, I want to get this item? Is there anything like that?
One item that's good to buy in a lot of situations is Deathfire Grasp. If the enemy has a really high health person, like a Trundle or someone who has a big tank item, that's really helpful to be able to kill them. And then also if they have a super dangerous squishy character like a Vayne, getting the Deathfire Grasp can let you kill them even quicker, which is very important.
Alright, CarnivaL, when you do Fizz, What's your general build order? What do you like to counter build into? What's your situational stuff? How do you like to play this guy?
I start off much the same as wolferer for the early Kindle Gem, the early Codex, for the quick CDR and the HP. Then go into the sweeper for the active and the increased movement speed. Afterwards, I actually don't go into a Lich Bane. I go for the BFT for the increased health, the increased M-Pen, and the increased CDR for the more fishes. Just to, be a lot more slippery and be more of a pain in the ass.
The BFT on Fizz, just because we were talking about it a little bit ago, which spells were the ones that proc? Which ones were the ones that proc BFT again?
That would be Virgin Strike, Playful Trickster, and Chum the Waters. Unfortunately, the passive nor the active on Seastone Trident will proc it because they're both on hits.
Okay, that'd be kind of crazy if it did, though. So with that BFT, for the increased health, I noticed that you don't really pick anything that's like armor MR related too heavily. Is there ever a situation where you want to actually get a straight up defensive stat, or can you kind of lean on Playful Trickster and have that be okay? Is that something that tends to work out?
Because I use Playful and Urchin to dodge, and then the increased health, and then my runes are slightly different from Wolferer's. I use the movement speed quints, the magic pen reds, the health per level or armor for yellows, but I also use the MR per level on the blues. So he cancels out any early pen that the opposing players get. So he gets, and the increased health from the sweeper and the BFT makes him a mite bit tanky in combination with the passive.
Are there any situational build items that you only look for, like certain comps or certain whatever to build, and where would you sub them in if you have any?
No, I wouldn't really change it. I mean, I would stay with those sweeper into BFT.
Okay. And RCIX, earlier you mentioned, I heard you mention DFG when we were talking about using Fizz's ultimate, and it sounds like you like to go for the big burst up front, lots of damage, the way you say you like to max Urchin Strike early. How do you like to build Fizz when you're doing that sort of thing?
I can definitely go into that. Actually, this is going to take me a few minutes to work through because there are several interconnected thought processes I have in building and running and mastering in Fizz. So I can actually go through that all now if you'd like, or I can break it up into the runes and masteries later.
Yeah, we'll hit the runes and masteries after we do the items, and then you can kind of just talk about how it would tie in when we get to that point.
Okay, so the way I build Fizz is I like to get him up to the 40% CDR. So what I do is I get Fat Sheen early, and I get my Sorcerer Shoes. Then I get a Codex and Kindle Gem for the early CDR. And then I finish a Sweeper and a Lich Bane. From there, I do Void Staff and DFG in whatever order makes sense for DFG if they have squishies, and Void Staff if any depend. Finish whichever one I didn't before, and then finally replace my ring with the Rublets.
Alright, so I take it that your runes masteries are going to go a little bit lighter on the CDR then, since you have a lot of it in the items already, right?
It's actually the opposite because those items give me 20% CDR, so I have to fill in the rest. Wait,
hold on, list them off again? Sweeper,
DFG?
and
DFG is what's in the finished build. Those are both 10.
Wasn't DFG was 20, I thought.
Nope. I wish it was 20, then I wouldn't have to run a weird rune mastery build.
It's only
It
10?
used to be 15, and then they adjusted it to be 10%.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't quite as high as I thought it was. I don't build DFG very often, I'm sorry. Okay,
Yeah,
so
so
that covers 20, and then runes masteries can cover about 20 as well.
Yeah, I feel the Fizz is
that puts you at 40 really fast, too, going Kindle Gem Codex, because they're both pretty cheap items.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing I like about that build. And, like, Fizz is in a really weird spot because he can't use most of the 20% CDR items for various reasons. Morello's he doesn't need the Grievous Wounds out of. He doesn't need the mana regen from the Fiends. He doesn't need the attack speed from Nashor's. And DFG is, sorry, not DFG. DFT is BFT, and it's probably strong to broken on everybody, but I just feel like it doesn't proc it enough to really want to build it.
Okay, I can sort of respect that. BFT is an item where I feel like I have to buy it sometimes, but I just am not using my charges. I
Yeah.
mean, its stats are great, but sometimes I feel like I'm just not using the passive. And with the cost increase on it, sometimes I feel like, can I build anything else? But
Oh, yeah.
that's just me. Everyone else's mileage may vary.
Something else to note about BFT is it does not give you very good ability power for the cost. So
No,
if
it
you're
really
going
doesn't.
with a quick Lich Bane, it doesn't feed into that very well.
Yeah, it's sort of a combination of he has other things to buy, and it's not outstanding on him, so I just skip it and make up for it in runes.
Okay. And do you have any like counter build or situational things that you look for specific comps or situations that you want to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to sub this out or I'm going to use this here?
Well, I haven't seen anything. It's possible in extreme circumstances I would go for an early abyssal or something along those lines just because I really need it. But mostly, for me at least, I consider Fizz's build solved and I can't really improve upon it.
Okay. Now I wanna go off on a little bit of a side thing here. On the builds, are there any items that you wish you could justify using on Fizz that you really can't? And let's go in the backwards order that we just went. So RCIX, you want to tackle that first?
I would actually really like to see Nashor's Tooth because he's something that looks like he might be built a little bit of attack speed with his Sea Stone Trident, but because it doesn't stack in any way, shape, or form, you just can't justify spending that much gold on attack speed. I would also kind of like to see, uh, or and it would probably make him completely broken, but BFT would actually be really interesting if his Sea Stone Trident passive procced it. Other than that, I mean, I can't think of anything offhand. Rylai's would be interesting because on hits don't proc that as well, and Rylai's I could look for a situational buy in some situations if I really need to stick. But since he doesn't proc it well, I don't buy it.
All right. Wolfer, what would you buy or want to build on Fizz that you generally can't fit in?
Um, Honestly, like I get Lich Bane and Sweeper so early, it's kind of hard to fit in the really expensive items like Witch Cap. So I find that I really never have time to get that. It'd be obviously great if you could fit it in as your sixth item, but its components have such terrible slot efficiency that I just never feel like I should go that route.
Okay. And CarnivaL, what would your items be that you'd add to your build if you could justify getting them or if they worked with his mechanics?
I don't know. Oh, I guess a Rod of Aegis if
All right.
make him.
Let me rephrase the question. What would your go-to troll item be on Fizz? You just wanted to dick around.
If I wanted to piss people off, I would get Iceborne.
Okay. Wow, that's
I went with
hilarious.
Iceborne Fizz once, and it was kind of fun, but it did not work as well as I had hoped. Because he doesn't really need to slow, he just chases people out of it.
I actually think that Tank Fizz is something that's possible as a lower tier pick and quite viable. It's just that nobody's bothered to figure out with it because he really does have excellent mechanics for being a tank. It's just nobody's thought of it.
Oh yeah, that's actually a good thing to mention.
wouldn't know.
If Wolfer and CarnivaL you want to add to that, how come we don't see Tanky Fizz? Is it literally just hey, playful trickster? He doesn't really need that survivability.
He AD Fizz exists. That's the Trinity. I think Hydra. I think Hydra. I'm not sure how Hydra works with Sea Stone, because that's a relatively new item. But it's more sustained than Burst. And usually, when you pick Fizz, you want him to be an assassin bursty character.
Yeah, the thing to note about AD Fizz is he has pretty much better back or gap closers than any bruiser in the game. So if you get all those bruiser items built up, he's really terrifying. Like Trinity Force is great on him, and then you can fill it in with some tanky items. You can put even a gunblade in there. Pretty much all items. Fizz loves pretty much every single stat that you can give him.
Yeah,
Okay.
Tank and AD Fizz aren't run mostly because of how good AP Fizz is, and Tank Fizz secondarily because you don't really want to disengage or untargetability on your tank.
Yeah, wow, I didn't think about that, the way that would work.
Like, hey, I'm tanking, but then I'm not tanking, I'm invulnerable.
Alright, does anyone have anything else they want to throw in about builds and things like that? Are there any, like, build traps that people shouldn't get into?
Rod of Ages.
Okay.
Rod of Ages, it falls into the category of, it looks like it's a good choice. It's got the right idea, but it's the wrong execution, and he wants more survivability, but he gets it better out of CDR over just directly buying health.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And
Okay.
Woda. He doesn't really need the spell then.
Yeah. One note I'll make is I actually think that Morello Namicon and Nashor's Tooth are both decent buys on him because they're a really cheap source of cooldown reduction. And for Nashor's Tooth, he actually does use the attack speed quite well. If you want sustained damage, that'll give you a lot of sustained damage with the Seastone Trident.
I guess the thing I look at it is, I could buy those and I could get 20% CDR, or I could go fix it in Rune and Masteries, give up a little bit of Magic Pen, a little bit of mana regen, something like that, and then just proceed to better synergizing buys for him.
I would be interested in the new Nashor's Lichbane. Try that to rush. That might be very interesting to do.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think once they add the AP ratio to Nashor's, it could definitely be reconsidered for Fizz.
Okay, I'm gonna kick us over to where is Fizz good? Fizz is a character who, as we've talked about, is extremely survivable and very dangerous. He's difficult to kill because of Playful Trickster. He has the CC and the ability to escape. He's good at chipping down low health targets. His burst can be ridiculous. He can have sustained damage or bursty. And just the running theme here seems to be, if you can catch Fizz with his stuff down, you can kill him. So it doesn't immediately seem like, it seems like he could delay on a point for a little bit, and then he would get splattered. But in reality, Fizz can delay for a really long time on a point. He can hang out there for a good 20 seconds or so. And I think, did we have that clip of him delaying like the 1v2 down there? Which timestamp was that?
It was the later timestamp. I don't remember.
1:18:36.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay. Let me make sure that's in the window here. Alright, I have that in the window. Now this is wolferer Fizz from Dominate Dominion 59, round of 4, Clueless versus Feel the Vibe. And I'm going to have that kind of playing in the background while I talk here. In the clip, it's Fizz and Pantheon down in the bottom. He throws the ult over on J4, then he turns his attention over to Kayle, puts a bunch of burst on her, walks back out of the fight, circles around for a little bit. His cooldowns come back, circles around the point, Playful Trickster's in, bops on Jarvan, dashes over, gets some work in on Kayle as well, and before eventually getting taken down by the Cataclysm. But he buys enough time for Ezreal to get down there and clean up things on the point. And Fizz being a fragile character as he is against J4 and Kayle, I mean, he was able to hold on to that point, about 10 seconds when it seems like he would just get obliterated. He'd take the airborne Cataclysm, Kayle throws Round Reckoning, he Playful Trickster's back, but he's got the Reckoning slow on him, gets ate up by, not Reckoning, yeah, it's Reckoning, right? Yeah, and then Righteous Fury cleans him up. But I mean, you bought time for Ezreal to get down there, you killed Jarvan in the process with the dot damage, you got Kayle really low. Why doesn't Fizz go splat? How does he do that? And there's lots of situations where this happens, where Fizz gets on a point, and he just kind of derps around, and you're like, get back here, and then all of a sudden, eventually he's dead, but you waste a lot of time, and now reinforcements are there.
Yeah. Something very important to notice in that clip is I Playful Trickster to dodge Kayle's Reckoning, and that saved me a ton of life. If I did not do that, I definitely would not have gotten the kills, and they may have neutralized the point before Ezreal could reinforce.
Yes, that's about 30 seconds, almost 40 seconds that you delayed on that point. I mean, you had a little bit of help from Pantheon at the beginning, but they turned around, they just ran Pantheon over, and then you just kind of went back into things and just kind of did your weave in and out and kept them going. That was about 40 seconds of gameplay down there in the bottom. That was just Fizz being Fizz.
Yeah, like I said before, I have all those movement speed items. So, like when Kale uses her witch cap, I can just walk out and Jarvan can't really hurt me. And then once they're back up and they're capping the point, you go and interrupt them, and then you sort of kite around a bit. That's how you do it.
Yeah, to get Fizz off a point, you need some kind of CC to get him, to keep him still, to stop him from casting his ability so you can burst him down quick enough. Jarvan had his knock up, but he used it on the Pantheon, so they didn't have anything to keep Fizz in one place.
Yeah, I saw that there. The second time I watched through it, saw that. Kale throws down the Reckoning, you just jump out of it, which does two things. It saves you from damage and from the slow from Kale by being able to be untargetable when it lands, but also gets you a little bit further away from Kale and gets you in range of J4 to deliver some damage on him as well. So, I mean, that one Playful Trickster did a bunch of different things in that fight. It negated the slow and damage, it got distance away from Kale, it got you in range to hit J4. Like, that did so much with just that one spell use. Is there... When on a point like that, can he do that in an offensive capacity too? Like, under a point that's under attack? Because if he can defend a point like that, how does he work when he's attacking a point?
No, Fizz is amazing at diving points. That's one of the main reasons I play on bottom lane. Because if your opponent's just like turtling on their point, you can, sort of Q in on them and do damage, and then you can E out and avoid tower hits. And you do this over and over until you whittle them down. Or if they're squishy, you can, put your Chum the Waters on them and go for the kill. And being able to avoid damage while diving is very good.
So you can effectively trade under a tower? That's what you're saying, because of your ability to dodge out?
Yeah, it's similar to like Lee Sin, where he Qs in and then safeguards out. It's that same type of dynamic.
But it's better in the fact that it doesn't need to target, though, because Playful Trickster can just hop him out, whereas Lee does need something to tag with Safeguard. Yeah. I'm trying to think of a way to phrase this next question. In an engagement on a point with multiple targets, if you're going for delay, like, what's the game plan? Do you try and ping-pong back and forth? Do you try to kite both of them? Like, what's just general purpose gameplay for Fizz in that situation where you're 1v2 defending?
The big thing in that case I would look to do is I want to save my Playful Trickster to avoid any critical CC, and I just want to disrupt, use my auto attack, use my Urgent Strike to disrupt as long as possible, and throw Chum the Waters out as a last resort interrupt if I can't do anything more in melee range without dying.
So you pocket the ultimate, use that as sort of a clutch move, and you watch for a CC before you use Playful Trickster. The rest of the time you're just kind of trying to splash damage to keep people from capping by going back and forth?
Yep.
Alright, wolferer or CarnivaL, how do you guys handle 1v2 defense if you're in that situation with Fizz?
I actually like to use the ultimate early on, like you saw in that clip. When I placed it on Jarvan, he basically couldn't do anything, and then I was just 1v1 up there with Kale. So basically, you want to spread out your abilities enough that only one person can hit you at a time, and you're dodging damage with your Playful Trickster. So that's pretty much it. And if someone's really dangerous, you can just put your Chum the Waters on them and then back off, and they have to stop capping, so it'll break them.
And wolferer, what's your game plan?
No, that was wolferer.
Oh, CarnivaL. Sorry, your name's still stuck in the middle of my screen. So everything I want to say is wolferer.
If it was like, say, windmill or something, I would try to, if they know I'm there, hopefully one of them would go try and check the top bushes or something like that, and then I could try and use the Chum the Waters to engage the other one on the tower while hopping over the wall and possibly kill them instantly, and then I'm left with a 1v1 under tower.
So you want to try and knock someone down, if applicable, to even up the fight?
Yeah. Or enough to make them... Because if you hit the ultimate and you get a Playful and a Urchin Strike on them, they're either dead or they're seriously considering what should I do.
This is really off topic, but with this video pause, I just noticed how freaked out the eyes on the lobster look. He's so scared. I don't know if that shows him in the video, but I had it paused at 1:18:40, and the look on that lobster's face is just pure panic. The little things you find when you pause in advance. Now, that's Fizz defending on a point. When Fizz is attacking a point, on a point, with the team, obviously, because kind of going in like 1v2 with Fizz is pretty risky unless you know you can just blow someone away, or people are low and Fizz can just do cleanup duty with his damage. In a team fight under a tower, what do you do with Fizz? Do you kind of do normal things, let the teammates, cycle the capture? Is it pretty standard stuff, or is there anything special?
Other than dodging tower shots, I wouldn't say there's anything particularly special about Fizz on tower fights.
I think you generally want to be the one early on and let your tankier people go and start the fight. And then, as people come to interrupt you, you can go after someone has a little bit lower health at that point and do a lot of damage.
Yeah, let your initiators go in, do the thing. If anything, you blow your load real quick, and then you start clicking the tower while you wait for your cooldowns. And if they interrupt you during that time, then you use your cooldowns when they come back up.
Oh man, I like that play. That's really good right there. Using, get your things on cooldown while you're waiting for it. You can kind of skirt to the edge a little bit, click the tower, and then decrease the damage that's incoming to your team while you're still waiting for that refresh period.
Pretty much.
That's cool. I like that a lot. Off point in the jungle. Let's go back to bottom lane for a moment. Bottom lane, Fizz, what makes him good down there?
He beats by a ton.
I'm not a bot lane, so I can say.
Hold on, one quick second. My Skype cut out on me for like 4 seconds, so I missed the beginning of whoever started talking first after I said that.
Yeah, I'll let.
Are you good now?
Yeah, I'm good now. So go ahead.
Okay. The thing about bottom lane Fizz is that the champions he beats, he totally crushes them, and they can't even turtle on a point. You could just dive them easily.
Who are these champions? Let's put some heroes on blast here.
All right. It's usually champions that you can dodge critical abilities with your Playful Trickster, and also like swishy casters usually. So champions like Brand, and like Malzahar, you can do very well against. In one tournament, I actually was playing against Sauron, who was playing Urgot, and I was able to beat him pretty well because I would just dodge his corrosive charge, and you could dodge his Qs and pretty much do damage to him while he can't hit you at all.
How good is the wave clear on Playful Trickster? Is it solid enough to be a pusher?
He's not going to outpush other people who are good at pushing, but he can pretty much defend against pushes very well with it.
Okay, so he's generally not going to get ate up by minions.
Yeah, except maybe very early before he gets AP and levels in his Playful Trickster.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make sure that you get auto attacks in on the minions. Usually early game though, you want to trade with the opponent because he's very good at trading at that point in time. In this game where I was playing against FTV and playing against Kale, I was actually outpushing Kale pretty well. So, there are champions who you can outpush with Fizz.
Now, on the upper end of the map, RCIX and CarnivaL. RCIX, you like to talk about, you like playing the bursty type of Fizz. What are some of the best locations for you to get your damage in, and what are the opportunities that you look for?
I like to see... Top is interesting because Windmill's actually pretty covered, and if you cap right, it's far away from Fog of War, but I like to see, and when I'm defending, I can sit above the Windmill and top and throw my free shouting and engage on somebody who caps, or I just generally like to see a lot of Fog of War so that I can get the jump on my enemies and throw out clear fishes or just get good engages.
Do you have any favorite spots on the inner part of the map, jungle, that you like to hang out at and look for kills, look for pickoffs?
Yeah, I would say I can't think of any. I can't think of any offhand, but if I was pressed, I would probably say, you know, that bush. You have the speed shrines, right? And then there's a bush to the left and a bush above and to the right.
Mm-hmm.
I would pick the bush below instead because people really don't think to look in that bush. They're all focused on getting through the bushes that they're actually going to be walking you through.
Okay, so you want to kind of clip them from behind as they're walking by rather than coming from ahead. Like
Yeah.
you want to come in from behind. Um, any particular reason for that?
Yeah,
That
it's
you want to
mostly
do the from behind as opposed to the like from the front?
Well, if they decide to turn around, that leaves you in a better, more neutral position to reverse direction and pursue them, as well as to reiterate, they are just really not expecting it, so they're not going to look in that bush. They're not going to react to it as quickly.
Something else to note is that usually the tankier champions are in the front, and then the squishy ones are sort of strolling along behind. So you can sort of sit in the bush and wait for them to walk past, and then you burst the squishy champion.
Okay, I got on the screen now the bush that he's talking about there. And an interesting thing in this clip is that Fizz, if you look at his location on the map, let me rewind it just a teeny little bit here and hit play. I'm at 109 even. Fizz down the bottom end of the map is Wolfer. This is one of your plays. You have Kale pushed. You have Sauron's Kale pushed all the way up against the Boneyard down there, and then you go up for the Health Relic, and then you just start streaking up towards the top of the map. Now you have Lichbane Sweeper at this point, plus Boots too, so that's all kinds of movement speed. You come up to the top here, and you just obliterate Talon. Like, you come in on him, you Playful Trickster up, tag him with that, he tries to run away, you follow up with the Urchin Strike, you just run him over, and then you start heading back down across the map. Sauron gets this tower neutral down here, but you show up with enough time to like start a fight down there. I mean, you get the ultimate off on him, he invulnerables it, but then you and Pantheon start to clean up. Minions get the tower, Zyra comes back down, and you have some of that going on. But like with that movement speed, you're able to get all the way up to the top, and then get all the way down to the bottom again immediately afterward, and hit your tower. And I feel like if Kale didn't have those minions, it would have been like, no problem, I chase Kale away, the tower's fine. And then down here, your teammates come up, and they do some fighting and things like that. But, like, what is Fizz's movement speed like with those? RCIX, Wolfer, does that, like, down in the bottom lane, Wolfer, I mean, you have those two speed items, RCIX, do you use a lot of that up top, too?
Yeah, it's Fizz. Because of the way I build with him, he doesn't really have access to move speed other than those two items, so it puts him in that really prime move speed band of around 440 for melee champions, which lets him chase with ease.
Alright, and Wolfer, what's with the crazy amount of movement speed in the bottom lane? Is it just so that you can get up and get active on the map like that when your lane's pushed up?
Yeah, if you watch that game, there are a few situations where I roam top. And the idea here is that I'll have one teammate who's low health or they're resurrecting, and then they can cover bottom quickly. So basically, we get a 5v4 on the top fight, and we still guard the bottom. In that clip that was shown, if the Ezreal went bottom, we probably would not have lost that point. But as is, we did, and it actually took us a while to get it back. So in that case, it actually backfired for us. We lost a lot of points because of it. But if the Ezreal covered bottom, we probably would have been fine.
Yeah, I liked that clip because it really showed that range. You missed, like, saving that tower by just a fraction. Like, it only got kicked over because of minion damage. And just the ability to go, you went all the way up to the speed shrine at the drill and back. And Kale only barely got that tower. Now, you guys like to favor the speed. CarnivaL, do you find a lot of use for that as well?
Yeah, I always go for the movement quintessences in the sweeper. Fizz needs to be able to get in, get out, and find people that are just not expecting him.
And is that more for ganks, really, and just like the map coverage, right? To be able to single out those guys.
Pretty much.
Okay. And when you're on your upper end of the map, what are the things that you look for where you wanna place Fizz at on the map? Like, what are some signs that say go here, go here?
I look at the opposing team, find out where they are, and then try to be where I need to be. Sorry for sounding a little vague there, but that's...
It's okay. It was a really vague question, but that helped me narrow it down a little bit. So, let's say you find a target. You look and say, hey, these two bruisers are dead. This squishy and this tank are alive. You don't have vision on either one of them. Where do you go? Like, do you go hunting, or do you kind of hold up and wait for them to appear?
Usually you would know where those two are, since if the two bruisers are dead, that means they reacted in some fashion, so...
Post-windmill team fight, kind of lost it a little bit evenly, 2 up on each side. Your guy just came back to life. You're up top, about half health. You're not sure if the other guy's recalled or not.
I would go bot. I mean,
swing bot?
If they were like maybe 3/4, both more than half health, I would probably swing bot, because there wouldn't be enough time to capture the windmill.
Okay, so if you know that you have low health targets up top, you'll swing up top, whether they're in vision or not. If you just know that they're at low health, you'll kind of go up there, investigate that, and see about making that play. But if they're not, you'll swing bot instead because you can't make the play up there?
Pretty much.
Cool.
If in the low health scenario, they've got 2 choices. They can stay and try and defend, in which case Fizz will annihilate them, or they leave and I get a free point.
Awesome. And what are champs that you love to see on a point that you're just like, oh, I have that? Are there any characters where that immediately comes to mind?
Any squishy. A range AD especially.
So ranged AD more than ranged AP?
It depends on the range AP. Like if it's a LeBlanc or a Talon, it gets really iffy. Whoever gets the first move wins.
Okay, so something that has a silence or like a snap CC might be a little discouraging, but if they don't have that, it's kind of go in?
Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah, and definitely, I would say if they don't have any CC that you can't react too well and they're squishy, I would look at going in. If there's somebody like Talon or something who can just lock you down or put a lot of load on you to really time your Playful Trickster, then I would step back and consider it a bit more, just because I don't want to screw up, miss my Playful Trickster, and then die on points uselessly.
And
I think Fiddlesticks is the most terrifying one, because you can't dodge his CC at all. It has a very long duration, and then there's a silence on top of it. So, that's a situation where if there's a Fiddlesticks on the point, you really don't want to challenge him.
I would disagree on that. I find Fiddle can't handle Fizz with the healing reduction, and if he starts draining you, I mean, if anything, you open up on him, and then if he starts draining on you, you just throw your fish, and he's done.
Yeah, it's mostly the fear that I'm sort of worry about.
I mean, he'll get the fear off, but he won't do any damage. He'll do a little drain damage, but it's not going to be much.
Because the drain's like 8 seconds. So what you're talking about is in a 1v1, the Dark Wind isn't going to bounce a lot. Usually, there's usually not a lot for him to bounce off. So you're going to get like barely any silence from that. You eat the fear. He gets you down an okay-ish amount, I guess. Maybe like, let's say he's like jacked out on items, gets you down like a third. But then you immediately pop the ultimate on him. Now, in that situation, do you lead in with the Urchin Strike, or do you lead in with the Playful Trickster? Like, do you go in with Urchin knowing you're going to eat the fear, and then you can pop the Playful Trickster right after the shark goes down?
It depends.
I know that was a really like complicated thing that I just set up right there. But basically, I'm looking for, what's your initiation?
If he was sitting directly on a point, I would open with Playful.
Okay.
If he was out in like the open somewhere, I would open with Urchin.
Okay.
For me, if it was like randomly a wild fiddlesticks appears, I would just walk up to him, eat the fear, and then fish and urchin strike to get the grievous wounds on him right away, and save my playful trickster in case he doesn't use dark wind right away.
All right. So
Oh,
we're
if
talking
Fizz
about
gets the jump on you, it changes. You have to run away.
okay. If he gets the
If he
surprise.
ults into you, then
Yeah, if
you're,
he gets his ult, then you're looking at runaway or die. But if you run into each other randomly in transit, then you can look for quick grievous wounds and quick ult, and that pretty much locks down Fiddle's options.
Somewhere there's a really really happy Fiddlesticks like and Fizz player right now. They're just like, oh man, now I know what's gonna happen if I run into him. I don't think that matchup has been explored in that detail before. That's
You have
awesome.
to also consider if his team shows up while you're feared, you're just going to die. So
Ugh,
No.
yeah.
you definitely don't want to fight when there's the possibility of that happening.
Okay, actually, let's sort of recap. Like, what are the situations that Fizz is best in, and then we'll go over to what makes him dead. Fizz, he seems to be a really solid delay on points as defensive in team fights. It seems like, I mean, he's great damage, but there's nothing in particular that like sets him apart from other AP characters like Brand, who can also dish out a lot of damage. Fizz has a CC, he can put out some hurt in a team fight, but so can other characters. It seems like the delay on the point and his ability to get mobile on the map and really snipe people out fast with the damage that he can deal. It seems like those are the two parts where Fizz is just like all over it. And using Playful Trickster against 1cc targets, Fizz can solidly 1v1.
Yeah, I would say, like, the thing with Fizz is he is an assassin who's a good assassin who is also a competent team fighter. And if you look at Talon, you look at Zed, you look at Kha'Zix, they don't really have hard CC. They can't contribute to team fights meaningfully beyond damage, whereas Fizz can throw his shark, knock up 3 people, and then go dive for the squishy.
The thing that I think makes Fizz uniquely good is that it's very hard for the enemies to escape if they're low health. So, it's like really annoying if you're in a team fight and then the enemy team's just walking out with like 50 health and you end up losing the team fight because of it. Fizz can always chase those people down and finish them off.
yeah, Fizz is in some cases like Caston. You need an absurd amount of crowd control to lock him down, to deny him from what he's very good at doing, which is just flying in and killing somebody.
Okay, so if I posed the question to you three guys, I want to know what your answer is. And try and be short, because if someone was actually asking this question, they might have ADD. Why should I play Fizz? Like, I want to play Fizz. Why would I do it? Just each one of you guys answer, just go down the line.
If you want to instigate someone and live afterwards, play Fizz.
Alright. Wolf?
If you want to run around the map really fast and deal a lot of damage and have style points when you dodge enemies' abilities,
Play Fizz?
play Fizz.
Alright. RCIX, why should I play Fizz?
I would say it's because he has a very high skill cap, and you can really pick him. You can do well, and he can be an assassin, and he can also apply as a sustained fighter, and he can also apply as somebody who works in team fights, and he's a really versatile role, and he's a lot of fun to play.
Alright, let me shorten that down a little bit there for you. He rewards skill, is versatile, and he can gank and contribute to team fights, and he's party all the time.
Yeah, I'd go with that.
Alright, cool. Now, we're gonna talk about the lowlights of Fizz. If I can hit this split, there we go. We're gonna talk about where does Fizz fail, what gets him killed, what matchups make you go, oh crap, I'm totally screwed. And I think we started with, what did we start with when we were talking about where he's good?
Let's start with CarnivaL here.
Okay. I didn't know where we started. I wanted to go in the reverse order, but since no one remembers. So CarnivaL, when you're playing Fizz up top, in a team fight situation, what screws you up? What makes Fizz ineffective?
Crowd control.
Any particular kind? Do you hate the stuns more than the silences or slows?
Silences would probably be the worst because they're the longest. And since you're not usually not getting any of the defensive masteries or merc treads, they're going to be very long compared to these stuns.
So if something locks you out of Playful Trickster for a long duration, which silences tend to do as opposed to harder CCs, then that equates to significantly more incoming damage?
It usually means you're dead.
Oh wow, well, that's worse than significantly increased damage. That's a trip back to the Summoner platform. So that's damage dealt to you. What are situations in which Fizz can't effectively deploy his own damage? Where you just go up to a fight and you're like, where do I hit here?
Some people are just too tanky. Like if you're against a Rammus or a Leona, it's really hard to deal meaningful damage to them.
If they picked a team of like 4 bruisers, then you're going to have a really tough time because you don't know who to jump on. You're just kind of left looking at them. You're like, what do I do?
Are there any items that would slow you down significantly? Like we've talked a little bit about how Fizz tends to have some sustained damage. Is Odin's like a significant impact against that?
I suppose, but you're only ever going to see that on tanks, so it's not that much of an issue.
Okay, it doesn't come up as often. Are there any other item builds or anything that really hurt Fizz, whether it's damage done to him or damage you're doing out?
QSS and Wooglets are about the only things. But he doesn't... QSS, in that case, usually a late game Fizz doesn't need his ultimate. It becomes a utility spell, so it doesn't bother him that much. Mm-hmm. But Wooglets will flat out deny the fish. And it helps them, so you either have to disengage or they're set up to initiate on you when they come out.
Okay. And lastly, positional fights. Where can Fizz get screwed?
In positional fights, it's mostly a matter of keeping an eye on all the CC that's flying. Like, if you miss a luck snare and don't dodge it, then that's pretty much you're dead unless the enemy's lucky enough to not notice that.
Okay. I can kind of see that. Not sure if I follow entirely. Let me rephrase the question a little bit. The character position, not so much spell position. Like, are there any formations where a fight would occur that kind of hang Fizz out to dry?
Yeah, in that case, I would look towards if they have longer range squishies, if they have Ezreal sitting way in the back, if they have Lux sitting way in the back, and you didn't prepare for that, then you're like, well, I gotta get past this front line and then move another 10 Teemos out to get to the squishy, and then they're gonna deploy their defenses, and I can't. What do I do?
Gotcha. So if they're a distance away that would require you to go Playful Trickster into dash to get to them, that's not good?
Right, you'd have to dash through the front line, Playful Trickster, and then that would get you in shark range, and they can just deploy their CC or their dash and run away, and you're stuck right next to a bunch of tankies and bruisers who will crush you.
Gotcha. That's the answer I was looking for. Does anyone else have any thoughts, team fight wise, on where he can get killed? Silences, people with significant range that can stay really far back and force you to blow too many spells. Wooglets trolling you out of the fish. Any other big ones?
I would just say that.
Oh, and heavy bruiser tank comps.
You really need your teammates to deal some damage up front for you to be able to finish people off. If your teammates are just melting, you're not going to be able to carry the team fight on your own.
Okay, so you want a little bit of damage from your allies up front to make it easier for you to clean up the fight.
Yeah. and for them to generate enough threat that the enemies attack them instead of you, so you can, get to the back line and pick off the people you want.
All right. That's team fights. Let's look at the middle of the map, like walking around, going for ganks like that. When you're moving around the jungle, what is your biggest worry there? Is it just getting caught by the silences, or are there any other situations? Like, can someone be too far away on the map, or is Fizz just fast enough that that's really never an issue, that he can get there and contribute to the fight?
You can, if you get isolated, it gets bad. Like if you were roaming the mid, or you were going into their side of the jungle, and then they cut you off, and then a fight happened top, that would go.
Oh, so if they wedge in between you and your team.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you get sectioned off, like zoned out.
Yeah, he has a high mobility kit, he has an evasive kit, it's just, that's not going to help you when there's 3 people worth of CC bearing down on you and no allies inside.
Gotcha. So you want to make sure that you kind of keep a line of effect to your team, otherwise you can get screwed.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, otherwise, I mean...
I missed that sentence, CarnivaL, I'm sorry. My Skype freaked out, but it's back now.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah, you're just, if they isolate you, they're not going to kill you, but you're just going to spend your time running around the map, and you're not going to do anything.
And that's just DPS time that you're not getting, and it's just resources going nowhere.
Yeah.
Okay. And now down in the bottom lane, whether it's the matchup, you against a bad matchup with the lane opponent, someone coming down to gank you, what are things that really ruin Fizz down the bottom lane?
There are some matchups that he's just very terrible against. I was playing Trundle bottom lane earlier against Fizz, and there was nothing that Fizz could do. I would just, even with the healing debuff, I could out-sustain him by so much, and he couldn't really get near the minions. And then I'd push it, and it neutralizes tower because he can't get enough playful tricksters on the wave to clear it. Other champions who are a problem like that are like York. It's very, very tough for Fizz to play against. Just these tanky and high sustain champions.
Okay, and what the in regards to the lane topography down there, where are the unsafe spots for Fizz to be at down in that section of the map? I mean, obviously, generally anything that's up near those 2 walls where people like to just jump over and attack you. Is that really it, or are there any places that you're kind of uncomfortable being with Fizz while you're doing the bottom lane thing, or is it pretty much okay wherever because the escape mechanics are pretty good?
No, if you're pushed all the way to their tower, you aren't going to be able to escape super easily. This is true for pretty much any champion you play bottom lane in Dominion.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be careful when you're pushing, and you need to check. If the entire enemy team is missing, you might want to back up preemptively before they come and get you.
Okay, so nothing Fizz specific then.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, if he gets pushed under his own tower, it can go really bad because you have to use playful to clear the wave, and then you're also broadcasting where you're going to land.
Ooh.
So
That's true.
That can get very dangerous.
That's pretty brutal. All right, so let's try and recap some of those major points. If you get zoned out away from your team, you won't be able to contribute the damage that you want because you're sectioned off away from them and you don't have anyone to run interference. If the enemy team has a lot of bruisers or tanks, like if they're running a 3 bruiser or multiple bruiser tank combo, then Fizz's burst is significantly mitigated by that. If there are people with excessively long range or have the ability to create a gap, like Ezreal can arcane shift back, Lux has a really long range, other champions like that, where you'd have to spend, Trickster and Dash and go through multiple opponents to get to them, that's not going to be good times. In the down the bottom lane, if you get pushed into your tower, it forces a playful Trickster use to clear the wave, which gets rid of your dodge ability. And any time that you're struck by a silence is awful, because they last longer than other CC, and it locks Fizz out of playful Trickster, so he can't really deliver that. And then Wooglets negating anything that negates or stops the shark from being able to do its damage. Something like a repel, another Fizz if you're in blind pick. If he pulls, can another Fizz pull that?
A repel? Is the Omnite in the game now?
What?
You
No,
said
that's
repel.
the Elise.
No, Elise is repel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I actually have played the Fizz versus Fizz matchup a fair bit.
Can you pull out of that?
Yeah, you can dodge the Chumba Waters
Okay.
with the pull.
So
Generally,
anything that makes you untargetable, invincible, is bad
Yeah.
times. Do you think we missed anything?
Oh, one other thing
Yeah.
that's very good is a champion that has a dash. If they can use it to avoid the damage on Fizz's Playful Trickster, they'll be have an advantage on you in that trade.
Ooh.
Especially if you max Playful Trickster first.
Okay.
Like Ezreal, if he Arcane Shifts out and you don't damage him, then he can probably beat you in that fight.
That's a little icky. We didn't get to touch on this, and we're kind of running over on time by a fair amount, and I wanted to. So let's kind of briefly, I know RCIX, you wanted to go into how the runes affect your build and stuff, but I don't know if we'll be able to fit that all in because we're running up against the cap here. So I just want to go through each one of you guys, say what runes that you like to use, what runes that you would not use, and then we'll hit summoner spells real quick after that. Start with RCIX. I feel like you're going to go long anyway.
Yeah, I'll try and ram it down a bit.
Okay.
So what I do is I run 10% worth of CDR runes, which is, it may as well be all glyphs, all seals. There's a little detail there that doesn't matter.
So you're trying to leave your quints open, right?
Yeah, I get quints. I'm running AP quints now, but plan to consider MS or MPen quints, and then just MPen reds.
Okay.
The big thing being the 10% CDR, I really like to hit that.
So you get the 10% there. You said you like to go Codex and Kindle Gems. That's 30%. Your other 10% comes from Masteries, right?
Yep, I run 9-0-21, mostly focusing on getting 6% CDR out of utility, 4% out of offense, and then just picking the secondary cooldowns and extra gold to get my way up the tree to the important.
Ooh, I really
CDR.
like that. That's something that not a lot of people do, which I'd love to go into in a different video about gold management, because if you can get a certain item, a minute ahead or even 30 seconds ahead, if you can get an item one team fight ahead of what an enemy would get, that can give you a pretty solid advantage. So I like that. That feels like it comes into play not too often, but when it does that kind of pay off for you?
Yeah, the practical effect is I pick the Biscuiteer and Explorer rooms as well as the actual gold rooms, so I net 75 gold up and then a little gold per 5, so I don't notice the gold per 5, but the extra gold from utility nets me a guaranteed 4 potions, which is really nice for the more sustained top fight.
Awesome. So it gives you extra survivability up there. Could you also use that to play greedy and get that quick CDR out? Because Kindle Gem Codex, that's pretty cheap, and it feels like with that little bit of extra gold, you can get that 20 seconds earlier, which is a res timer.
Yeah, I can either just go for the 2 potions like I would ordinarily get and hold on for the gold for a little bit earlier, or go for the extra potions and survivability. It goes both ways.
I actually like that. That's really thoughtful. That's pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah. And just a really quick cover, the reason I don't run 21 or even higher on offense, even though I've considered it, is you're leaving out a few percent damage to low health targets, a few percent AP, 6 flat AP, and spell sword, so it's a decent increase in damage, but I would rather have the move speed and CDR just because you hit CDR milestones, and those are so important and more important than a little bit more AP and a little bit more damage.
Okay, because getting that extra ability out is going to be more damage than the 20 AP or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I follow you. That sounds pretty solid, actually. I'm a fan. Is there any situation in which that doesn't work out?
I have to say it's really worked well for me. Any situation, it's just Fizz has such high innate damage that I'd rather go for the secondary utility stats, which are more valuable in low quantities.
Okay, so overall, you like to go for a straight up like gank strat. You know, with the DFG, you try and go for the maximum damage, get the Urchin Strike up first, and you just really want to get out and run people over as early in the game as possible, right?
DFG doesn't come in till late in the game.
Oh, I was referring to the CDR when I meant
CDR
getting people down, and the DFG really kicks in late game when that CDR's kind of fallen off a little bit, right?
Yep, and you hit that point, and then by level 9, you're looking at a 3.6 second cooldown dash because I max Urchin Strike, so you hit that, and you're really sticky, and that will hold you over until you get the really big burst items.
Alright, and what summoner spells do you like to run with that? Or is it kind of team comp dependent?
Well, the thing is, because it's solo queue, nobody else really bothers with Garrison, so I've kind of gotten myself used to running Revive Garrison everywhere.
Alright.
If I don't do that, I would look at running Revive Ignite if the team comp at all allows it, just because I want that extra damage.
Okay, cool. Wolfer, Rune's Masteries, how do you play it out? And what summoner spells do you take?
I will say that I think there's a lot of variation you can take in Rune's Masteries on like most champions, and it doesn't make too big of a difference. But what I like to run is, for Masteries, I get 21 in offense. I get both the physical and the magic penetration, because Fizz does a lot of physical damage. I actually even get the brute force, the extra 3 attack damage instead of the mental force, just because you attack so much. And then you want to make sure you get that 4 points in sorcery. Sometimes even go like to 22 or 23 in offense, depending on what else I want. And then for runes, I usually get the move speed quints and the hybrid penetration reds, and then I get resists for the other runes, but again, you can vary those a lot. For summoner spells, I pretty much always go Revive Exhaust, but I think you can make arguments to taking Barrier or Ignite or Garrison instead, depending on the situation.
So it seems like with Fizz, you can swing a couple different ways, and you like to have the ability to change it up.
Well, I have my set that I like, but I think if someone else likes something else, that probably works for them too. It doesn't make a huge difference what
I got you. General
tiny
purpose.
changes you make.
His kit's like, I'm just trying to like condense down the sentence for people. His kit is really good. So there's Flex Ribbon Runes and Masteries.
It's more important how you play him than how you build him.
There you go. That's what I was looking for, something like that. Okay, I gotcha. And summoner spells are flexible for the same reason, right?
As long as you bring Revive.
Okay, yeah, bring Revive and then something else. And CarnivaL, let's close out this and then we'll do the outro. What do you like to run for Runes and Masteries on Fizz, and what do you like to take for summoner spells with that?
For runes, usually it's movement speed quintessences, magic pen reds, armor or flat armor or HP per level yellows, and magic resist per level blues. For masteries, I run the 21 offense, but no dual pen, just straight APs. And then I go 9 in utility for the mana regen per the 3 mana regen, and the summoner cooldown decrease and the speed shrine buff.
I like the speed shrine buff. I think that's one of the more underrated things in the that's the extended duration, right? I mean, if you pick that up, you can get speed shrine to speed shrine, if I remember correctly, without losing the buff.
I believe so.
You at least get close to it. Well, if you're going to get speed items on Fizz anyway, you definitely can. So that synchronizes really well.
It's just so no one can kite me. If I'm going to get to you, I'm going to get to you.
Gotcha. You guys have any last words on, Fizz gameplay, or do you think we covered it pretty good?
Don't buy Rod of Vegas, please.
Okay. There you go.
I think Fizz gets a bad rap about being really hard to play, but I think that's mostly because he's hard to get through the laning phase in Summer's Rift, and to do that well. If you're playing in top lane at Dominion, I think he's actually pretty easy to pick up, so don't let that be a barrier to trying out Fizz.
I consider Fizz to be the top AP assassin on the map.
Alright, so Fizz, good pick in Dominion, rewards high skill, has his downsides, but for the most part, he's gonna find people, and he's gonna kill people. He's gonna bring the hurt.
In a perfect symphony of watery destruction once you get your DFG, as I like to term it.
Alright, we'll go with that. Let's real quick say who we are again. You guys go first, then I'll close out the show. So, who is everyone? For anyone that joined in late? I don't know why you joined in late to the VOD, but whatever.
Alright, I am wolferer from Team Clueless, and I play a lot of Fizz.
I'm CarnivaL from Team Bay Evelyn Child Support.
I'm RCIX. I don't belong to the current team, but I've played Fizz for a long time.
And I am Gandair of the gaming clan, Vato Clan, and this has been Dominion Breakdown Fizz. We hope you found some of these things insightful, maybe help you step up your game, fix some flaws, or maybe it'll help you kill that Fizz that's been causing you so many problems. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.